Today we're going to see how to use Microsoft Excel and VBA, Visual Basic for Applications, to remote control Microsoft Internet Explorer so that we can log into password-protected websites and pull data off them automatically. Now, you might be saying, Internet Explorer, who uses Internet Explorer anymore? And the answer is not very many folks, I reckon, because Microsoft has replaced Internet Explorer with Edge. However, Internet Explorer is the only browser that Microsoft Excel can control out of the box. It turns out that we can control other browsers like Chrome and Firefox and even Edge. But to do that, it requires additional software. In fact, we'll see that in a later lecture, and we will use an open source package called Selenium to allow us to accomplish that. It's a little bit more intensive to do, a little more difficult, and it requires that we install additional software that you may not have permission to do on a machine that you're working on. So I do want to show you how to use Internet Explorer. And the truth is, it's probably the simplest way to be able to work with password-protected websites. So if the website you need to get data off of does work with Internet Explorer, and more websites are just refusing to work with Internet Explorer because it's old technology, but if it does work, I recommend using Internet Explorer. Otherwise, you'll need to do a little more work to be able to use Selenium. But that'll be the topic of another lecture. So let's go ahead and begin by downloading some tools that I've written that will make working with Internet Explorer a little bit easier. And to do that, I'm going to come to the blog where I post several of the things about VBA. It's just called vba-course.blogspot.com. And any of the pages that talk about using VBA to control Internet Explorer should do the trick. So I'm just going to go ahead here and download ModIETools, and then we'll import that. Now that's a .bas file, which just means it's an exported module. So I'm going to come back to my project, Alt F11, and I will choose File, Import File, and then I'll find that file that I downloaded. Now, let's see, what did I do here? File, Import File. Whoops, I must have hit Export. File, Import File. There we go. And so here's ModIETools.bas. So that has now given me ModIETools module. And let's just take a quick look at that module, at some of the procedures that are in it. So here, we're going to be using wait for here today, which will just allow us to pause Internet Explorer until it's fully loaded. Attach allows us to attach onto an already open window of Internet Explorer. We'll probably see that as well today, so that we don't have to continually open new windows. And then get tag number will be really handy as well. And we'll see that when we get to it. There's some others here that we probably won't cover today, but you're more than welcome to play with those. So let me go ahead and insert a module that we'll use for doing our work. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to see how to submit a form. And to do that, we'll use a password-protected website, one that I hope that you each, well, at least that many of you will have accounts to, so you can do this example directly. And that will be Facebook. So let's go ahead and make a sub-procedure called Facebook Login. And we'll get started. The first thing that we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add a reference. So Tools, References, and then there's a thing called Microsoft Internet Controls. So we'll get that with Tools, References, and we'll scroll down and find Microsoft. Then we'll find Internet Controls, make sure we check the box, and say OK. Now we should be able to declare a variable of type Internet Explorer. So we'll dim IE as Internet Explorer. Now, of course, that just creates an object variable that it's allowed to bind onto an Internet Explorer object. So let's go ahead and create an instance of Internet Explorer and bind it on there by saying set IE equal to a new Internet Explorer object. So that should bring up a brand new copy of Internet Explorer, but it will be invisible to start off with. So we'll set the visible property equal to true so that we can see it. Now, maybe times when you'd like to do something on behalf of your user that requires logging into a website and getting some data. And so you may not actually want to make it visible for that, just let that happen in the background. But for sure, for development, we're going to want to have that to be visible. And let me just put a stop in here. So we should be able to run it that far, and it should bring up a copy of it on Explorer. Let's go ahead and take a look. Looks like it's brought Internet Explorer up just fine. And if you're like me, the very first time this happens, you're going to sit here and wait for it for a while to load, thinking it's got to be loading its home page. But when you open up Internet Explorer this way, through code, it doesn't try to navigate anywhere by default. It's just waiting for you to tell it where to go. So let's go ahead and see how to tell it where to go. So after we've made it visible, I'm going to come here and say IE.navigate to. So here we'll say navigate to, and that should allow us to specify a URL that we'd like to go to. So that will be https://facebook.com. All right, I'm just going to run that, and we should be able to see this navigate. But I want you to watch that the yellow current statement indicator is going to get to the stop before this page is loaded. So it took a while to get here, but the important part is that when we say navigate, as far as VBA is concerned, we're done here. And so it just moves right on. It doesn't wait for the page naturally. And that's what that wait for function was over here in the ModIETools module. And so I'm just going to say wait for, and then give it my IE object. And so that will know that we're waiting for this instance of IE. Even though in this example, we're only going to have one instance open at a time, you certainly could have IE1, IE2, IE3, 3 different variables, 3 different browsers, and be manipulating those all simultaneously. So now let me just come back here and maybe send this over here to Google. And let's come back and tell it to navigate and wait. And this time we should see that the page will go to Facebook and it will be fully loaded before we get to the stop statement. So now it's navigating, it's there, it's loaded. We realize that it's loaded, and now we move on. So that's going to be important. Anytime we navigate to a new page, we're going to want to tell it to wait until that page is loaded so that the stuff that we need to be here is actually here for us to work with. And now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go ahead and log in here. So I'll have to give it an email and a password. And so I've got to figure out how can I find out how to get a reference or refer to this object so that I can change it. Well, fortunately, I can right-click this and choose Inspect Element. And that should bring up a tool that will allow me to inspect the underlying code here. It looks like it's kind of brought it up here behind the window, and there it comes in. Okay, now sometimes we have to hit that inspect twice for it to actually go there, but it looks like it's still kind of waiting here. Oh no, it took us there on the first time. That's good. So here we can see that we're kind of deeply nested into the whole HTML structure of this page, but we're right here looking at a tag, an input tag, and the name is email, and the ID is email. And so that's what we need to know. In fact, if we've got a tag that has either a name or an ID property, it'll be really easy for us to refer to get a reference to that tag to be able to manipulate it through code. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. I'm going to come back to my VBA editor. Now that I've waited for it, I'm going to try to get a reference to that email input box. So I'll say IE.document. And then there's a collection called all. The all collection is the collection of all the tags that make up that document. And I can refer to these either by their name, their ID, or by their number, their ordinal position. Here, let me just take this to the immediate window to play with for a second. And let me just print document.all. I don't even know what the 100th tag is on this page. But I'll go ahead and print document.all number 100, and then I'll print the tag name. And we'll see what kind of tag that tag is. So that's a link. So a link shouldn't be too long. I should be able to display the whole thing. So instead of the tag name, let me just go ahead and display the outer HTML. And so that is the 100th tag. It looks like it's a link. It's taking us to static XX, I don't know what that is, but that's where it's taken us. Oh, sorry, it's not I thought it was an anchor tag, but it's a link tag. So, yeah, pulling in something, I'm not sure what it is. But the whole point is that I can refer to these by number. That's one way, just like a regular collection, by name or by number. And so what I'm going to be interested in, though, because we already looked and we saw that this text box has an ID of email, I'm going to use that to refer to it. So instead of number 100, I'm going to use its ID, email. And I should be able to refer to the value property, V-A-L-U-E, of that tag. And what I want to do is put my email in there so I can log in. So now if I run that, it should actually plug my email address right here into the browser. Excellent. We'll do the same thing for password. I'll inspect that element, and I can see the ID here is pass, P-A-S-S. So we'll come back to my code, and I'll just do that same thing here again, but this time I'm looking for the object called pass. And now I'll put my password in here. In case you're wondering, that is not my real password, but we should see that it puts that value in there. So let's fill that in. I'm going to go ahead and change that to my real password so we can see it log in. So now we just need to get this to log in. So there's a couple ways that we could do it. One, we could find this button and we could tell this button to click, or we can use, these are going to be part of a form. Anytime we're collecting information and sending it somewhere else, we'll use a form to do that. And so we can just find the form tag and tell that form to submit. So I'm coming back here to my Object Explorer. What is this? The F12 Developer Tools, my inspector, I guess. And I'm just going to look up the hierarchy until I find the form tag, and here it is. So this form has an ID called login_form. So I should be able to get a reference to this form tag, which contains all this other data, and it's already set up to submit directly to this location to do the login. So that looks great. Now, some forms are set up to submit directly like this one is. Others submit through JavaScript. And so if you try to get a reference to the form and you try to submit it and it doesn't work, then the next thing to do would be to find a reference to this button and then click on the button. But for this example, we should be able to submit the form. So it's called login form. So it's called, where's it, form login? It is login_form. And I'm not going to set a value of it. Instead, I'm just going to call the submit method. And then we'll have a similar thing. After we hit that submit, our code will be, it will have accomplished its objective, but we'll want it to wait. So I'm going to bring my wait for IE and make a copy of it, put it down here as well. So now I'm going to come right back up to my submit. I'll hit F5, and that should log in this browser. So now it's successfully logged me in. If it didn't log me in, then I'd have some error showing there, but in either way, I would have submitted that form. And so this is the basics of what we need to do to be able to submit a form using Internet Explorer. So next example that I'd like to do is actually see how can we pull data off of a page using Internet Explorer. And it turns out there's not a whole lot of information that's interesting for me to pull off of my Facebook page. In fact, I guess you can see I've got 62 notifications here that I haven't even looked at. It's been a while for me. So we're going to use a different page for that. But we've seen how to put information into a form and submit it. So what I'd like to do is take a look at a different page that we'll use for this example called Naxos. Naxos is the premier provider of classical music. And so ultimately what I'd like to do in this example is I would like to come and just pull pull the information for all the classical composers that they have listed at Naxos, and it is quite a set. So here's the data that we're going to try to pull in. I'm going to want both the name of each one of these composers, and this is just the A's here on this page, and I'd also like to get like the link. So I want to pull two pieces of information, the name and then also the link. We can see the link down in the bottom left-hand corner. So, I could probably pull these names off using the web query wizard without too much trouble. But one of the deficiencies of the web query wizard is that you can only get at data that is shown on the page. If what you need is shown in the HTML but not displayed, you just can't get to it. And that's the case of the link that we have here. So this will be the document that we're going to work with right here. So I'll go ahead and put it side by side. So let's see. Here's my Facebook login. I'm done with that one. So let me stop and let's create a new one called Get Composers. I'm going to go ahead and declare Internet Explorer as we did before. But now I think I'm going to take a little different approach to working with the Internet Explorer. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say if IE is nothing. So that's exactly what IE will be the first time we come in here. So until we've bound this object variable onto an object, is nothing will evaluate to true. So then what I'd like to do is I'd like to try to attach onto an existing Internet Explorer. And so I will say if attach, and again, attach is one of these modules or one of these procedures that I've created over here in ModIETools. We'll just look through our open copies of Internet Explorer and try to attach onto the most recent one. It returns a Boolean value. So if it finds one as successful, it will return true. So I can use that to kind of control my code over here. So attach will return true or false. So if attach IE, if it returns true, I'm good. But if it doesn't, so let's say if attach IE equals false, then do one more thing. And that one more thing will be just the same thing that we did up here. So if we can't attach onto an existing one, then we'll want to go ahead and create a new copy and bind onto it. And then either way, we'll want to make that visible just as we did before. And of course, if I set the visible to true and it's already visible, then there's just no change. So that should be okay. Let's just go ahead and run it up to that point. And hopefully it'll just attach right back onto this particular one. So that ran pretty quickly. So it's already here. But let me just come down here and make sure that I do have control over it. So let me say IE.visible equals the opposite of what it currently is. Yeah, so I'm able to hide that and to be able to show it. So I've got control. Even though this is already open, then I attached on to that existing one. So that'll just make it a little bit nicer than always opening a new copy of IE. All right. Now I'm going to send it to this URL because, of course, probably next time I run this, it won't be looking directly at this URL. So IE.navigate to, and we'll start by coming to this page. Now, this page is actually looking for just the A's. So ultimately, we'll probably adjust this so we can pass a letter into it so we get the A's or the B's or the C's. But for right now, let's just go ahead and pull open that page. And so to see that that works, let me go ahead and send this somewhere else. Let's go back to Google. And I'll want to put a wait for IE in here. Now, wait for IE, sometimes if the page takes a really long time to load, wait for IE doesn't quite do it right. We'll have to see on this one, and there's some tricks that we can do to make it wait to be sure the page is loaded, even if wait for IE doesn't quite catch it. So let's just see if we get to the stop before the page is loaded, or if the page loads before we get to stop. So we've navigated to it. We can see that it's navigating. That looks pretty good. So yeah, so it navigated there, and then we stopped, so we're in pretty good shape. So now we've got to the page is loaded, and we're ready to move on. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to just take a look at how I might be able to find this very first tag. So again, I'm going to inspect this. So right click and inspect element. And I can see, yeah, that's my guy right there, A, however you say his name. But as I look at this tag that I'm after, there's no name on this tag, there's no ID on this tag, so I won't be able to go directly after it. But you know, if I can find a tag that contains it, then I might be able to work with it that way. But this tag doesn't have a name or ID, doesn't have a name or ID, so I don't think working with name or ID is going to be helpful here. So this is exactly what we wrote the get tag number procedure for. So the get tag number procedure is going to expect to have what kind of tag we're looking for. This is an anchor tag or an A tag. And then it wants something unique about the tag that it can identify it, that it can somehow figure out how is it different from the other tags on the page. And so it looks like all of these tags that I'm interested in are going to have this /person/ in it. And so there'll be other links that I don't care, like the new releases, artists, composers, but the ones that are going right to a person's page, that will be the link that I'm interested in. So that will be something that's characteristic about this kind of link. So let me just come here and see if I can get that tag number. So let me go ahead and dim a tag no as a long integer. And then I'm going to say tag no. It's going to try to get that tag number equals get tag number. And again, this is declared in that ModIETools. So first thing it needs is an Internet Explorer object. So I'll pass IE to it. Now the tag name is an anchor tag, and case doesn't matter here. It can be upper or lower case. But now the identifying string, what is it that I'm looking for, is /person/ PERSON. And then it says where do we want to start? Which tag number do we want to start with? And so in this case, I think I'm going to go ahead and start with, why don't we just start with 0, tag number 0. Okay, whoops, I wanted /person/ in here. Now I'm going to have hundreds of tags, anchor tags on this page that have that /person/ in it. And so this is just going to find the first one after tag number 0, or actually beginning with tag number 0. So it should find the first one that has this characteristic. So let me just go ahead and run that line, and hopefully that works. Okay, so it didn't error and it got back to my stop, so that's good. Let's go ahead and check and see what tag number is. So that happens to be the 319th tag on this page. So before we get to this tag, there's 319 other tags that set up this page to how this page is going to look. So what I want to do now is I want to be able to get to that tag. Well, this is just like we did it before up here, but instead of using the ID, we're going to put in here the number 319. It's the 319th tag. And so that should show me, well, I don't think anchor tag has a value property, but it does have an outer HTML. And so that's just everything including the tags. It also, by the way, has an inner HTML, which should just be what's inside the tags. And that'll be handy because that's one of the pieces of information that I want right there, is just this, the name of this composer here. So that looks great. So, so far so good. So here I'm navigated to here, and I'd like to be able to pull that information out. But actually, let's just go ahead and print that. So let me do a debug.print of the inner HTML of that particular tag. Now I've just collected the tag number in this variable, so instead of having that hard-coded, I'll put the tag number right here. So I should be able to just run that line, and it should print out the composer's name. That's great. But now I'd like to be able to do this for all of the composers on this page. So let's just go ahead and make a do loop here. Do and loop. Maybe I'll go ahead and put a do events in there just for good measure. All right, so I'm going to go to this page, but now instead of always looking from 0, I'm going to want to look from the prior tag number. So right now my tag number is 0, so I want to look starting at tag number 0 plus 1 and find out, at the next tag past, my tag number is 319, so I want to start looking with tag number 320 to find out where that next tag is. So let's go ahead and step into this. And it looks like it printed my next guy here, Agard, Thorvald Agard. Yeah, that's my next one. I wonder what the tag number is. Is it the very next tag number, or are there some other tags in there, I wonder? So let's just look for the tag, no, 321. So it looks like there's another tag between those two, and it's probably, well, we could inspect it and see what it is. Why don't we? It looks like it's still up. Let's go ahead and inspect it. So, oh, it's a line break. So we've got this tag, a line break, then this tag, and then a line break in this tag. Now, I'm not so sure it's only going to be line breaks in there, so I don't want to just make up a loop that counts every other one starting from there. So we'll continue kind of doing this the way that we're doing it. Now, it turns out that, and let me just kind of get myself started here. Let me go ahead and initialize outside of the loop. Let's set tag number equal to 0. And of course, it'll start at 0 because that's the default value, but as I'm working this example, I'd like to be able to just drag my insertion point back up here and start again. So now the very first tag number we're going to start looking at is we'll start looking at tag number 0 plus 1 the first time through this loop, and it'll find it and then print it, loop again, and then it'll loop the next one and the next one and so forth. Eventually, it's going to get to where it can't find any more of those tags. And in that case, get tag number will return -1. So let me just put an if statement here that says if tag no equals -1, then let's get out of here and exit the do loop. So now let me go ahead and clear off my immediate window, and I should be able to just kind of go through here. There's my first one, second one, third one, fourth one, and so forth. That looks pretty good. Now, I think what I'd like to do, though, is, let's see, so I'll print the inner HTML. That looks pretty good. Now let's see if I can figure out how to get at the information that's in the inside of the tag. So if I was to look at the outer HTML and to split it by quotes, I think I'd have a quote for the title, a pair of quotes for the title. Then my next pair of quotes would be this. So that might be a pretty slick way to do it. So let me just do a debug.print of the outer HTML. But I want to split this. Split the outer HTML based on the quote. Putting a quote inside of quotes is a little bit weird. So maybe instead I'll do this other way. So I can actually ask, I can identify characters by their number. So happens that character number 34 is the quote. And so that gets to that quote character. So I'm going to split this with character number 34. And then, I don't know, it looked like it might have been the third or the fourth one in there. So I'm just going to say I'm interested in the number 4 element there. Let's see what that, I'm not sure that's the right one, but let's just go ahead and see what that one is. I think we can just continue going here. Whoops. Looks like that was a little bit too far, so let's try number 3. Yeah, and that's the one that I'm after. But I probably do want to put the HTTP naxos.com in front of that. So let me print the whole thing here to get the whole URL that I'm after. So I'll hard code in here https://naxos.com, and then it'll have the slash in that. So print that one more time, and this should print out then the full URL. Let me go back one more, and we'll get the name, and then we'll get the URL that should take us directly to that page. Come back to my Chrome because it'll be a little bit faster. Actually, probably quite a bit faster. And let's just check that page. I don't know, Naxos is kind of a slow site. Did it not take me there? So I'm not quite sure why it's not taking me there. Let's just see if I follow a link where it goes. That was artists. I wanted composers. And I'll follow one of these links and see what the link looks like. Looks pretty good. Can I go directly to it? Yeah, that takes me to it. I wonder what I have different here. Let's just go back to my code and take a look. Naxos.com person. Ah, it's no www. Oh, I didn't have the www. That's the problem. All right, that should be good now. So that'll give me the URL that I need to dump directly to that page. So I should be able to now kind of go through here, and let me put a comma on this line. They'll come on the same line then. And I'll just keep going. Shift F8 to step through. And now I'm getting the data that I'm after. In fact, let me just go ahead and run that the rest of the way out. And that's pulling the data off of that page, and it's gotten me all the way down to Azazio Filippo. And if we come back here and check it, I think we'll see that that's our last guy. Yep, there's our last one right there. So that looks pretty good. Well, why don't we go ahead and make this so that we can write it out to the worksheet instead. So that'll take just a little bit of work. Let me dim r as a long integer. And we come right here and just say r equals, and we'll just write this to the active sheet, whatever sheet that might be. R equals cells, oops, and with the very last row, so cells, let's say rows dot count and column 1. From there we want to end up, and we want to know what row that is and add one onto it. Then instead of printing this, why don't we just say cells, row number r, column number 1, dot value is equal to this. Cells row 1 dot value, oh, no comma. And then column 2 is going to have the URL that we need for that. That looks great. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. And that should, yeah, each time it'll calculate a new row for R, figure out the next blank row to put it on, and then write that data out. Let me go ahead and just run this, F5. Let's see where our workbook is. I'll put the workbook over here. Then, yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's just go ahead and run it and see what happens. We'll go ahead and put the page up. We should see it refresh that page, even though it's already on that page. Waiting for it to load. There it's got the data. And should be running through. Stop. Let's go back and look at our page. And there it is, now filled in with our composers and our links. So I guess the last example that I want to do here is just make this so it can get them all instead of just this one. So maybe when we're done, let's go ahead and select that page so we can see kind of the bottom of that row that we're on. So let's just say cells, whatever the row is, and select. That'll just take us down to the, when we're out of the loop, will take us to the last one. So as we're going through the other pages, we'll be able to see it go through those. So let's just make another sub-procedure up here. And let's call this one get all composers. Oops. Sub, I'm not sure I just did. Let's go back. There we go. Sub get all composers. And now here, let's go ahead and pass in letter as a string. And so now, instead of just always going to page A, I'll delete the A, put in a couple of quotes, which will split my string into two strings, and I'll concatenate letter in there. So whatever letter I pass in will be the page that I go to. If I go to A, B, C, whatever, that will be the page that it goes to. So here, let's just dim x as an integer for x equals 65, which is capital A, to 90, which is capital Z. Then we'll just call get composer, and we'll pass it character number x. So the first time we'll pass it character number 65, and so that will pass down an A. We'll go to page A, then page B. Actually, we've already done page A, so why don't we just for now start this as 66. And I think we're in good shape. Let me go ahead and run this. And we should see it. I'll go ahead and bring up the page. We should see it navigate to, let's see, 60, 90, it's not navigating. Did I run it? Hit play. Oh, there we go. So now it's running. Yep, we're waiting for this page. And as soon as it comes, we should be able to pop over to Excel. There's the B pages. And looks like it's bringing in a bunch of B's. And once it's done bringing those in, it should take us to the end of the B's. Oh, I've got this stop in here, so let's get rid of that stop and keep it going. Then it should be pulling in the C's. There's the C's. It's brought in the C's, and we can see here that it's bringing in more data. Now it's moving on. It's trying to get the D's. Looks like it's got the D's. It should fill in the D's. And it looks like it should just keep going and get that data. And so we can use get tag number, tell it what kind of tag we're looking for, something specific about that tag, and kind of where to look. And that should allow us to go and pick up those tags even if they don't have an ID or a name. But if they have an ID or a name property, then we can just use the ID or name property to refer directly to them and then manipulate their properties that way. So this will take a while to run to be able to get all that data. I'm not sure what I'll do with it after I have it, but just an example of pulling data off of a page using Internet Explorer.